My biggest regret out of everything, like,
Is there one?
if we were to talk about public things that general public would know about, it was hitting the pregnant woman in that hit and run car accident about 4 years ago now. That was. Even though it was 4 years ago, man, it is something. Everyone has a mother, everyone has a wife or sister, and that was one of the worst situations I've ever been a part of, man. I had no clue that was a pregnant woman. I had no clue it was a woman. I just knew that I felt like it was a fender bender type of thing, and obviously it wasn't a fender bender, but I wasn't hurt. I felt fine, and I assumed that the person that I hit wasn't hurt as well. And, hairline fracture in the woman's arm, and she was a pregnant woman. It was a terrible, terrible situation. Being a father of daughters, and being a fiance, and being a person who loves his mother dearly, harming a woman is terrible, and that's something that's probably one of the few things that I would totally take back.
We're going to talk about Chuck and Tito. Tito versus Chuck Liddell, 3. Tito very kindly came on the show, and again, we thank him for that. We tried to get Chuck on the other day. It sounded like he was, speaking to us through a time machine, so it didn't happen. So both of those guys, we appreciate the fact that they were willing to come on the show and try and hype it. Now, for those two, I feel like this was a big deal. Of course, there's a lot of people out there claiming that this fight should have never happened and all the rest of it. And they're probably right. But for Chuck and Tito, there was a lot at stake. There was personal rivalry. There was a lot of history, a lot of bad blood going into this. Certainly for Tito Ortiz. Now, going into the fight, Chuck didn't look great, in my opinion. And I want to pick my words carefully. But a lot of people were out there criticizing him, saying he looked terrible and all the rest of it. He looked okay at times. Sometimes he didn't look too crash hot. Now, when the fight started, and it was evident, and I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to Chuck Liddell, because he is a guy that helped build this sport. He really is, and if it wasn't for guys like him paving the way, the MMA wouldn't be what it is today. So for that, he deserves our respect, as does Tito. But he looked old. He looked like a guy that had been knocked out several times in his last few fights. He looked like a guy that hadn't been, staying in the gym. He looked like a guy that didn't really belong to be in there. But I will say this, as I said a moment ago, he still commands a certain level of respect. And for me, the saddest thing about it all was all these so-called MMA journalists out there that were on Twitter that make a living from writing about MMA. And as I said, Chuck Liddell is a guy that helped build this sport. And these so-called fucking MMA journalists making jokes at Chuck's expense. I think you should have a little bit more fucking respect. Yes, of course, he didn't look good, whatever. But he still had the balls to step in there, which is more than what any of these journalists can ever say. None of them have the balls to do it. And when you spend your entire life fighting and dedicating yourself to a craft like this, there isn't much more you can do. Yes, I've always had a big mouth. I can do shit like this and other stuff. Not everybody's like that. Chuck is a guy that really only knows about fighting, and that's it. Now, I don't know what his financial situation is, but I would ponder that perhaps, it was financial reasons and financial incentives as to why he took the fight. And for him to go in there still deserves people's respect. For these journalists to come out there and talk the shit they were saying last night, I'm not going to name names, but I was absolutely disgusted, Lewis.
Which fight do you want more? Hot Balls Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou?
I have to go for Hot Balls.
Now, why is that?
Well, okay, so we haven't fought before, and he's ranked higher. He's just ranked higher. I definitely have a score to settle with Francis, and I have no doubt that undoubtedly that will happen in the future sometime. But to me, Derek Lewis is more appealing because of those two reasons. I haven't fought him before, that's number one, and he's higher ranked.
Now, aside from the fact you haven't fought him before and he's higher ranked, what do you make of him as a fighter, as an opponent?
Well, he's a strong guy. He's a heavy hitter. But I'm sure I can put him away. I am going to put him away. We fight, I will put him away 100%.